Hello everyone. Today we'll see what happens when you want to open and close the inlet and exhaust valve, and at what time should they be opened and closed. Okay, under the heading valve mechanism and a valve timing diagram. So let us see. This is the valve mechanism wherein you will see that the signal to open and close the inlet and exhaust valve is entirely dependent upon the crankshaft, because the crankshaft is the component, the part of the IC engine over which the piston will reciprocate and convert its motion into rotary motion. So the crankshaft decides whether the piston is at top dead center or whether it is at bottom dead center, and which stroke is taking place, either it is suction, expansion, suction, compression, expansion, or exhaust. So this in turn, that is the position of the piston at TDC or BDC, determines the opening and closing of the valve. So we say that the opening and closing of inlet and exhaust valve, it is directly related with the crankshaft. Now how do the valves know what is the position of the crankshaft, when to open, when to close? This all is done through this mechanical transmission elements. We can see that there is the transmission belt, that is the belt tensioner, tensioner spring, tensioner bolt, timing mark. Okay, so the crankshaft, when it rotates, it is going to rotate this timing belt. This timing belt is wound over here, and this is attached with the camshaft, which opens and closes the valve. So the crankshaft, it rotates, and this in turn opens and closes the valves by means of a camshaft. Okay, so let us see what is now a valve timing diagram. This is called as a valve timing diagram. Let us see one by one what are the different elements. Top dead center, TDC. Okay, this is the TDC. Bottom dead center, this is the BDC. Now, this valve timing diagram is basically for a 4-stroke SI engine. We know that the total strokes, that is suction, compression, expansion, and exhaust, they take place within 2 revolutions of the crankshaft in case of a SI 4-stroke engine. So let us see, are there 2 revolutions of the crankshaft present? Let us consider this as the reference point wherein the rotation of the crankshaft is 0 degrees. Suction will start and it goes up till here. So we have moved from 0 to 180. After suction, we know compression takes place. So compression starts at 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution and continues up till here. So again, this is 180. Okay, so this is 180. This is 180. This in total is 360 degrees of revolution. Then after compression, we have expansion. Again, it goes from this point to this point. So again, 180. So how much this happens? 362, again 180, it happens to be 540 degrees. Then finally is the exhaust stroke. So this again goes for 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution. So in totality, we find that this is happening for a 2 revolutions of the crankshaft, by which we can say that this is for a 4-stroke SI engine. Now let us see about the valves. Inlet valve opens, inlet valve close, IVO and IVC. IVO inlet valve opens, IVC inlet valve closes. Where is the inlet valve opening at 0 degrees of crankshaft revolution? Where is it closing at 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution? What is happening between 0 to 180 degrees? Suction is taking place. Okay. Now comes the tricky part. Inlet valve is opening at 0 degrees. Rather than saying it is opening at 0 degrees, we should say that it starts to open at 0 degrees. Why does it start to open? Why is it not open? Because these mechanical elements, they have their inertia, they have friction between themselves. Hence, there is a very small yet present time lag, because of which the crankshaft will rotate, and after a certain small amount of time, the camshaft will rotate and the valve will open completely. So if you start opening the valve over here, this much part, let us say till this arrow, will be elapsed in the crankshaft revolution when the valve is completely open. Okay, so at this point the valve is completely open. Now, fine. Now the valve is to be closed at 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution. It cannot be closed instantaneously. It cannot be closed instantaneously. If you want the valve to close at 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution, you will have to start the procedure of closing the inlet valve at some point over here. So that if you start closing from this point, at this point, finally when you reach 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution, the valve will now close completely. Okay, so the total amount of crankshaft revolution during which the inlet valve is completely open is only from this point till this point. The rest is the valve is opening and the valve is closing. Let us try to understand this by way of an example. Let us assume this IVO point is that you are standing at this point. Okay, you are standing at this point. Now if I tell you, let's start running at the fastest speed that you can generate. Okay, you simply cannot start running immediately at that speed from this point. For you to gain your top speed, you will have to run certain steps. You will have to run certain steps. So you will overcome some distance by the time you reach your top speed. So similarly, for the valve to open completely, it will have to cover some distance of the crankshaft revolution before it opens completely. Similarly, if I tell you to stop at this point, you cannot simply keep on running at your top speed, reach this point and stop instantaneously at that very moment exactly. No, it cannot happen. If you want to stop at this point, you will have to stop reducing your speed well before that. Let us say from this point. So if you want to stop over here, you will have to start reducing your speed from this point onward. So the total region wherein you are running at your full speed was only from this point to this point. So the total, similarly, the total valve open is available only for a small portion of the crankshaft revolution. For the total 180 degrees of crankshaft revolution, inlet valve is not completely open. In this part it is opening, that is it is partially open, and in this part it is closing, that is again it is partially open. It is only completely open from this point to this point. Same thing happens with exhaust valve as well. If you want to open the exhaust valve, if you open it at 540 degrees, it will elapse some part of crankshaft revolution before opening completely. And again, similarly, if you want to close it at this point, you will have to close it well before this, so that again some part of crankshaft revolution is elapsed in closing the exhaust valve. Again, similarly, only a limited part of crankshaft revolution from 540 to 720 degrees will be available, during which the exhaust valve is completely open. This creates a certain problem. Volumetric efficiency is lost. Okay, thermal efficiency is lost. Some amount of pressure is also lost. Residual exhaust gases are present, which further lead to certain complications in the operation of the engine in subsequent cycles. So this is not an actual valve timing diagram. What we are interested in is the inlet valve should be completely open at this point till this point. The inlet valve should be open from this point to this point completely, and the exhaust valve should be open from this point to this point completely. If you want to open the inlet valve, if you want your inlet valve to be opened completely at this 0 degrees of crankshaft revolution, then you will have to start opening your inlet valve a little bit before the point when the piston reaches top dead center, so somewhere around here. And again, if you want it to be opened at till this point completely, you will have to close it somewhere over here after the piston passes BDC. Similarly, if you want exhaust valve to be open completely at this point, you will have to start opening it from this point, that is a little bit before BDC. And if you want it to be open completely till this point, you will have to close it over here somewhere after TDC. Let us see. This is the representation of an actual valve timing diagram. As you can see, before the piston reaches top dead center, inlet valve has started to open, so that by the time 0 degrees of crankshaft revolution is there or the piston is at TDC, the inlet valve is completely open. And you can see that after the piston has passed BDC in the compression stroke, the inlet valve has closed. That is, we will see that inlet valve opens 25 degrees before top dead center and closes about 25 degrees after bottom dead center in crankshaft revolution. Okay. Similarly, exhaust valve, it starts to open 50 degrees before BDC and it closes about 25 degrees, about 15 degrees after TDC. Okay. So we have seen that in actual valve timing diagram, the inlet valve should open before the piston reaches top dead center in suction stroke for suction stroke, and it should close after bottom dead center, after the piston has reached the bottom dead center. Similarly, it goes for the exhaust valve as well. Now in this phenomena, you will find that there is a certain time from this to this, from this to this, from this to this, again from this to this, inlet valve is open as well. From this to this, exhaust valve is also open. So the time span during which the exhaust valve is open and also the inlet valve is open is called as valve overlap. It is called as valve overlap. Now, there are certain disadvantages which are associated with this actual valve timing diagram, and they are: if this inlet valve is open when the compression stroke is taking place, then some amount of pressure will be lost. Similarly, if during expansion stroke exhaust valve is opened before this BDC, some amount of power will be lost. But these are the small evil. You will have to compromise on these to overcome certain greater advantages. Okay. So this was about valve timing, valve mechanism, as well as valve timing diagram. Okay. Thank you very much.